What we are witnessing is the death of traditional warfare and the violent birth of something entirely new. 3 years, 1 million casualties, over $300 billion in firepower burned, broken, or buried. The war in Ukraine isn't just the most documented conflict in history, it's the most revealing. Every missile strike, every drone kill, every tactical failure is caught on camera and broadcast to the world. And in that brutal spotlight, we've seen something shocking. Weapons once hailed as invincible, exposed. Cheap tech and battlefield hacks, dominating. Drones, glide bombs, laser systems, rewriting the rules in real time. So which weapons rose from obscurity to turn the tide? Which billion-dollar machines turned out to be glorified scrap? And what does it all mean for the future of war? Let's break down the winners and the humiliated losers, starting with the king of battlefield chaos, the FPV drone. A few statistics alone tell a stunning story. Ukraine produces over 200,000 first-person view or FPV drones monthly, with the cost of the drone itself ranging from hundreds to $10,000 per unit. These glorified toys have been credited with destroying over 2,000 Russian tanks, making million-dollar anti-tank missiles look overpriced. The most successful models, like Ukraine's domestic Nemesis series, carry warheads weighing only a few pounds. While not designed to penetrate armor directly, they drop their payloads onto openings or weak points in the tank, where even light munitions can do serious damage, typically bypassing the need to breach more than 25 millimeters of armor. But the real revolution came with AI integration. Ukraine's Seika autonomous targeting system uses machine learning algorithms trained on thousands of combat videos to identify and engage up to 64 types of Russian military targets. While not yet capable of recognizing specific tank models or crew positions, it can operate independently in jammed environments, where traditional drones will be rendered ineffective. The drones have also introduced a novel psychological aspect to warfare. Russian tank crews and infantry have to contend with listening for the low buzz of drones flying overhead, and they have to stay silent and still while doing so, or they might just end up being the next target. Videos have shown Russian soldiers abandoning perfectly functional vehicles at the mere sound of drone rotors, when a few $1,000s worth of commercial components can neutralize a $4.5 million T-90M. Traditional armor doctrine collapses. Ukraine's FPV innovation extends beyond simple kamikaze roles. The Vampire night attack variants use thermal imaging cameras to identify targets in the dark, showcasing the ingenuity of adapting civilian components for combat. Experimental coordination software now allows operators to control multiple drones at once, enabling saturation-style attacks to overwhelm point defenses. Most remarkably, reusable variants can drop grenades before returning to base, transforming what were once single-use weapons into persistent battlefield threats. And it's not like Ukraine has a monopoly on drone warfare. Chinese DJI components, theoretically embargoed, still flow to both sides through third countries. While FPV drones dominate front lines, long-range strike drones have revolutionized strategic warfare, leading them to make the second spot on our list. Ukraine's ability to strike Moscow, which lies over 300 miles from the border, using domestically produced drones, represents a display of deep strike capabilities previously reserved for major powers like the US or even Russia itself. The earliest iterations were Ukraine's Bobar or Beaver drone, which costs approximately $106,500 to produce yet carries a 44-pound warhead over 600 miles. Compare that to cruise missiles costing millions for similar capability. Fast forward to 2025 and you get the UJ-22 Airborne, powered by a gasoline engine and capable of flying for up to 7 hours. The Airborne, or its more advanced cousin, the UJ-26 Boba, were the most likely candidates behind a series of high-impact strikes in mid-January 2025. The UJ-22 uses inertial navigation with periodic satellite updates, making it more resistant to electronic jamming. Some newer variants reportedly incorporate low-altitude flight profiles to help evade air defenses, though details remain limited. The strategic impact extends beyond physical damage. Every drone that reaches Moscow undermines Putin's narrative of Russian invulnerability. The Kremlin has peddled the agenda that the special military operation in Ukraine was a foregone conclusion. Yet, if Russian military depots are burning because of undetectable drones, that propaganda is slowly going away. And with it, possibly the entire Russian regime as we know it. With modern problems come modern solutions, and that brings us to our third winner. Electronic warfare, EW, has emerged from military obscurity to being front and center of every major operation. Ukrainian innovation started out of necessity, facing Russian jamming that neutralized GPS-guided weapons. Ukrainian engineers developed anti-drone systems cobbled together from satellite TV dishes and ham radio components. Despite its improvised nature, Bukovel AD successfully spoofed navigation signals, causing Russian drones to land in Ukrainian territory. Over 200 enemy UAVs have been captured intact using this $50,000 system. And the system worked for a few months. Russia quickly caught up, deploying a range of jamming technology of their own, such as the Krasuka-4, which targets airborne radar, the Zhitel, which suppresses satellite signals that most navigational systems rely on, or Lyre-3, a cellular communication blocker to create a digital wall for drones that rely on those signals for real-time instructions. Worse yet, Russian Pol-21 units have severely degraded HIMARS accuracy by spoofing GPS signals, reducing hit rates by up to 60% in contested areas. Electronic warfare is threatening to upend traditional methods, and it puts into question just how effective Western equipment is against it. In fact, electronic warfare has become so prevalent that drones were beginning to go analog because of it, using fiber optic cables as a direct link between the drone and operator. While this would severely reduce the range of the drone, it also made it practically undetectable, or at least until Ukraine showcased a modified radar to do just that, find the drones in the sky and keep them targeted. The back and forth in electronic warfare has led to both sides of the conflict unable to proceed without what is perhaps an excessive reliance on technology, keeping the front line in Donbass dominated by the side that can monitor it better at any given time. But Russia didn't attack Ukraine on land alone, it did so over sea as well. And Ukraine rebuffed that with the number 4 winner, naval drones. With practically no navy of its own, Ukraine's naval drone attacks repeatedly damaged Russian ships to the point where the Black Sea Fleet retreated to Sevastopol. The Magura V5 represents the current pinnacle of that technology. It has a 500-mile range, a 42-knot maximum speed, and can carry 440 pounds of explosives. At $273,000 per unit, it costs less than a single anti-ship missile while providing reusable reconnaissance capability. But Ukraine's true innovation came later: anti-air naval drones. A Magura V5 variant was found with R-73 air-to-air missiles on stabilized platforms, creating mobile surface-to-air capability. In late 2024, this version reportedly shot down a Russian Su-30 fighter attempting low-level attack runs. The innovation would force Russia to backpedal from trying to use even aircraft to approach Ukraine from the Black Sea. The Magura V7 implements AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles instead to create yet another layer in Ukraine's defenses. The technical adaptations to develop and use these drones are nothing short of an astounding focused effort. Starlink terminals provide over-the-horizon control, thermal cameras enable night operations, acoustic sensors detect helicopter rotor noise. The multi-role flexibility turns each drone into a Swiss Army knife of naval warfare. So the naval drones allowed Ukraine to practically control the Black Sea. The short-range FPV drones and their enhancements show that Ukraine is contesting Russia on land. But Russia is contesting the skies with our number 5 winner, glide bombs. The basic concept of adding wings to conventional bombs isn't revolutionary, but the scale of employment has made these crude weapons unexpectedly decisive. The most common variant, the UMPK modified Fab 500, takes Soviet-era 1,100-pound bombs and adds pop-out wings and GPS guidance, cost per unit roughly $30,000. Of course, glide bombs can't match Western precision munitions. After all, a glide bomb is more likely to hit 30 to 50 feet away from the actual target, versus 3 to 10 feet for Western JDAM. When Russia is dropping over 150 of them daily, precision becomes less critical. This crude solution is supported by the economics and mathematics inherent in the current attrition stage of the war. Russia inherited massive Cold War bomb stockpiles. Estimates suggest it has over 500,000 Fab series bombs in storage. With the cost of outfitting one with a guidance kit being much lower than buying a Shahed 136 drone from Iran, Russia is threatening to start firing on all cylinders through glide bomb deployment alone. Russia's willingness to expend thousands of glide bombs monthly creates unsustainable interception economics. Even if most of them miss, Ukraine can't take chances and must respond to swarm attacks by deploying its limited defenses. Patriot and other high-end systems are too important and expensive to use for these attacks. The country's meager air force already has its aircraft stretched thin trying to patrol a 600-mile front line. And the delivery platform for Russian glide bombs maximizes survivability. Su-34 fighter bombers release glide bombs while still some 30 miles into Russian territory and let the bomb fly the rest of the distance, staying beyond most Ukrainian air defenses. More modern designs of bombs, like the Kometa system, also contain extensive anti-jamming technology to make the bomb only susceptible to interception. Ukrainian countermeasures have achieved limited success. Electronic warfare sometimes spoofs GPS guidance, causing bombs to miss by hundreds of meters. F-16s occasionally intercept bombers before weapon release. Long-range drones target air bases to destroy bombers on the ground and munitions depots to remove FABs before they can be turned into glide bombs. But these tactical victories can't overcome the fundamental asymmetry. Russia has more bombs than Ukraine has interceptors. But Ukraine has received another ace up its sleeve to take control of the skies: the French Mirage 2000 fighter jets. The Mirage 2000 5F variant Ukraine received excels at precision ground attack. Its RDY radar can track 24 targets simultaneously while engaging 8. The Mica air-to-air missiles provide credible self-defense against Russian fighters, but the real value comes from precision munitions delivery. ASAM hammer-guided bombs, Scalp cruise missiles, and Exocet anti-ship missiles transform the Mirage into a multi-role precision platform. Since entering service in early 2025, Ukrainian Mirage 2005F jets have begun flying combat missions primarily focused on air defense. Their first confirmed operational use came in March, and while details on sortie numbers and mission outcomes remain limited, the addition of the Mirage marks a significant upgrade in Ukraine's aerial capabilities. As with the F-16s, the exact number delivered and how many more are expected has not been made public. Where Mirages excel is creating pockets of aerial supremacy and air denial, which has made them pivotal in allowing Ukraine to use them for long-term ground missions. The aircraft played a key role in precision strikes in the Kursk region, helping prevent Russian forces from consolidating positions in key villages. While Mirage 2000s have also operated in the Belgorod Oblast, they appear to have served primarily in support roles, providing electronic protection for other strike aircraft like Ukraine's Su-27, rather than conducting bombing campaigns themselves. These missions nonetheless offered Ukraine a valuable opportunity to project force into Russian-held territory. But while long-range systems, aerial bombardments, and drones have dominated the skies and spearheaded efforts, it's land that both countries want to dominate. And artillery is the undoubted reigning champion of land warfare, which paradoxically puts it on both the winner and loser side of the column. When the war began, Russia held a decisive numerical advantage in artillery systems, with estimates of over 19,000 launchers, both self-propelled and towed. Its munitions production capacity, however, ramped up later in the conflict. By 2024, Russia was producing around 2 million shells annually, with projections indicating it could soon reach 3 million, potentially tripling the combined supply available to Ukraine from the US and Europe. Furthermore, North Korea was revealed to be a vital exporter of artillery munitions, with another 3 million rounds sent to Russia over just 6 months of tracking shipments. However, traditional towed guns and static emplacements, once the backbone of military power, have become liability-laden relics in drone-saturated battlefields. The reason is simple. For a traditional Soviet-era howitzer, setup takes 3 to 5 minutes and displacement another 2 to 2.5 minutes. Ukrainian drones need just 90 seconds from detection to impact, and out of those nearly 20,000 pieces of artillery, most of them ended up being slow or practically immobile museum pieces that would only be good for point defense and only when uncontested. This is showcased by the absurdity of Russia failing to make progress with artillery. Russia launched between 20,000 and 90,000 artillery rounds in a day, while the front line moved inches at most. The constant need to deploy, fire, and move puts strain on the platforms that house the howitzers, use up fuel that needs to be supplied from somewhere, and require multiple soldiers to perform the redeployment every single time. With drones and mid-range artillery systems on the opposing side of the front, a howitzer that failed to move would fail to survive, bringing its operators with it. To be fair, it's not like Western weapons did much better in this regard. Ukraine faced a similar problem with its supply of Soviet-era artillery, and previous generation self-propelled pieces donated by NATO proved to be much less useful than originally thought. One of the few winners in this category was the model that prioritized integrating mobility alongside firepower, the French Caesar system. Caesar's statistics are not much to go on. It houses a 155mm caliber gun that is on par with most modern artillery and achieves a 25-mile range with NATO standard rounds. This is increased to 35 miles with rocket-assisted projectiles. A 6-round magazine enables rapid-fire missions, which is similar to modern artillery that the US and Russia offer. But the key specification is the aforementioned mobility. Firing to driving away takes only 45 seconds. The wheel platform is more reliable than traditional track designs. Add to that GPS navigation and automated fire control that allow single-gun precision raids previously requiring entire batteries, and the system is leaner and meaner than ever before. Ukraine employed Caesar's maximized strengths to be able to operate them in guerrilla-like operations. Each Caesar worked alone or with minimal support, letting Ukraine's extensive drone and EW network take the lead for running interference. Those same FPV drones would be used to provide real-time targeting data, eliminating traditional forward observer exposure. That same mobility focus would turn out to be the downfall of yet another Russian giant, anti-air defenses. Russia's vaunted S-400 Triumph air defense system entered Ukraine with a fearsome reputation. Marketing brochures claimed a 250-mile range, simultaneous engagement of 36 targets, and capability against everything from stealth fighters to ballistic missiles. But Ukraine has destroyed or damaged at least 31 S-400 battery or radar systems since 2022. A single mission destroyed 2 of the batteries in Crimea, out of the 5 previously estimated to have been sent there when the war started. Estimates suggested that Russia had under 100 of these systems when the war started. Even if we take the more optimistic estimates of around 150 systems spread across battalions, losing 30 of them still represents a sizable loss of operational capacity. A launcher and its allotted missiles cost roughly $200 million to produce, creating a significant drain on Russia's resources with each lost system. The reasons for the losses vary but have been attributed to technical shortcomings. The long range of the radar and the missile assumed near-perfect weather and lack of interference, which rarely happens. The missiles used in the system are not all rated for the max range, with the more common missiles covering less than half of that distance. The radar used in a battalion likely didn't work against surface-skimming drones, which were the primary method of attack. Alternatively, S-400s destroyed by more traditional means, such as artillery fire. A HIMARS was reported to have downed a few in 2024, suggesting widespread system vulnerabilities that Ukraine could abuse before launching attacks. The loss of launchers was compounded by Ukraine targeting vital munitions depots, which held missiles that were compatible with the S-300s and S-400s. Without backup missiles, an advanced S-400 is relegated to early warning and might sit practically defenseless, just waiting to be struck down. Operational doctrine failures implemented by Russia further degraded the system's theoretically impressive capabilities. Russian military doctrine is a holdover from Soviet times, where the main threat came from the West in the form of a NATO invasion. Thus, military operation guidelines were made to conduct a defensive war rather than an offensive one, with S-400s positioned in predictable defensive patterns. The next 2 losers suffer from the same failure to adapt to modern conditions. Number 3 on our list of losers is the tank. We're not really talking about any tank in particular, but the class of vehicles as a whole. Russia started with 12,000 tanks at the beginning of the war. In 3 years, it managed to lose 10,800 of them. Let's start with the T-72, or more specifically the T-72B3. This modernized variant entered service in 2012 with thermal imaging, reactive armor, and improved communications. However, the supposed upgrades proved meaningless against top attack munitions because explosive reactive armor, designed for horizontal threats, cannot protect against vertical drone strikes. In some cases, the tanks rolled out in Ukraine without any of these components, as corruption and profit skimming meant that they were never properly built. Russia's premier T-90M fared little better. The hype for the T-90M mentioned advanced protection with adaptive armor, enhanced optics, and improved armament. But FPV drones could still approach from angles beyond defensive system coverage. The turret's design retained a critical vulnerability found in earlier Soviet models: spare ammunition stored loosely in the turret. This flaw, exacerbated by the tank's compact layout, meant that any penetration could ignite the ammo, triggering catastrophic jack-in-the-box style or decapitating explosions that launched the turrets skyward. Unlike Western designs, Russian tanks typically lack blowout panels to redirect such blasts safely. Then there's the mythical T-14 Armata, which never materialized in any meaningful way. Despite parade demonstrations since 2015, serial production never started. Russia boasted it would have 2,300 of them by 2020. It would only build a dozen by 2023. The purported next-generation armor and offensive capabilities were still not enough to defend against drone swarms. The few T-14s that were spotted on the battlefield conveniently disappeared just a few weeks later. The desperation of losing tanks led to increasingly manic responses. T-62 tanks from the 1960s storage appeared in 2022. T-55s followed in 2023. These museum pieces were practically sitting armored ducks, only meant to soak up as much fire as possible in hopes that Russia would gain wins elsewhere. It's not all bad news for the tank, though, as integrating electronic warfare capabilities into tank battalions and introducing drones to provide long-distance surveillance could shore up some of the platform's weaknesses. However, it's still using winning equipment to make a loser look less bad. But by far the biggest loser in the war is the human element. Pretty much every aspect of warfare that was once dominated by humans has been taken over by machines. Drone operators became superstars in the new world order of warfare, sourced from gamer circles and trained on console controllers. This led to some of the largest wins on either side of the conflict, involving launching a precision attack on famous drone squads. Technology multiplied traditional infantry vulnerabilities. Thermal imaging makes concealment impossible. Body heat signatures appear clearly against cold backgrounds. Acoustic sensors can detect footsteps hundreds of meters away. Trail cameras triggered by movement alert defenders to approaching forces. Smart mines activate for personnel signatures. Every technological advance favors defenders over exposed attackers. And nowhere was that more obvious than during the Kursk incursion, where poorly equipped, confused Russian recruits surrendered in waves, exposing not just a tactical failure, but a breakdown in communication and command across the Russian military. Russia reportedly sent men to the front lines who had no business being there after only a few weeks of training with subpar equipment. The new iteration of the incursion in Belgorod only showed the desperation of Russian commanding officers, as recruits were forced to march into Ukrainian outposts under duress. They would end up being mowed down by drones and aircraft fire. Technology also led to widespread information and disinformation campaigns, as social media could spread graphic combat footage, informing potential recruits of their likely fates faster than ever before. The Kremlin relies on maintaining an illusion that it has negligible losses compared to Ukraine. If that veneer ever drops, it will be because it has started exhausting the population that is directly responsible for maintaining the status quo in Moscow and other population centers. Ukraine managed to get where it is through innovation, relying on novel and emerging strategies and making the most of Russia's mistakes. Those same mistakes were made due to Russia overestimating its military capabilities and prowess, and over 3 years of brutal combat have compressed decades of military evolution into months. The war in Ukraine has shown that in modern conflict, strategies and equipment from the 20th century should remain in the 20th century. And when two sides with equal military capacities collide, we're talking Russia and NATO here, humans may not need to apply. But what do you think? Thanks for watching as always, and leave your comments below.